One could argue that half the schools in the Pac-12, specifically Washington and those in California, might be better off financially were the conference to end its partnership with AT. In the late summer of 2013, the Pac-12 announced a sweeping partnership with AT. The terms of the AT. But according to a time frame laid out 2 years ago by Commissioner Larry Scott, the contract expires this summer, every facet of it. That left two options, the Pac-12 and AT. The parties end their relationship, and any chance of the Pac-12 networks being shown on DirecTV for the foreseeable future. A middle ground, a continuation of purgatory for the Pac-12, wasn't an option, based on comments by network's president Mark Shukin. Shukin was asked in March about the looming expiration of the AT. The fact that DirecTV does not carry the networks does not work for us, and we are not inclined to treat those as separate initiatives. We're hopeful that DirecTV will choose to launch the networks the way everyone else carries the networks, but I would rather work with another wireless partner than an entity whose television partner doesn't choose to carry the networks. Hello, T-Mobile. Shukin told the hotline on Wednesday that the Pac-12 networks are in active negotiations to extend their partnership with AT. Carriage on DirecTV for the networks is not part of the discussion, however. We've isolated the conversation to one of continuing the current terms with U-verse alone, he said. Instead of continuing the conversation about DirecTV, seeking context, the hotline has reached out to numerous contacts in recent months, contacts with knowledge of the conference's business affairs, and the responses were unanimous. No one expected the Pac-12 and AT. Everyone expected AT. Another source explained that the conference and AT. 15, the last time they seriously engaged in negotiations over DirecTV carriage. At the time, AT. Scott recommended the deal to the presidents and chancellors. They rejected it by an 11-0 vote. Washington State abstained, an outcome that undermined Scott's reputation with the campuses and the Pac-12's relationship with AT. When that went down is when it all started unraveling, with AT. Can they repair it? I don't know. What happens if the parties agree to end their relationship, which they might have already done, quietly and privately? The conference doesn't comment on business partnerships during ongoing negotiations. If the sides have walked away from the table, perhaps Scott will address the matter at Media Day. The situation is a tad more complicated than you might think. On a practical level, the official close to DirecTV negotiations would have limited impact. The Pac-12 networks haven't been on the satellite provider for 1 second of their existence. They wouldn't be on DTV this fall if the contract, for instance, had another year remaining, and the athletic departments haven't budgeted for a deal. But on a psychological level, the permanence of the DirecTV separation would sting deeply. It would sting fans and officials throughout the conference, the pain resonating all the way up to the commissioner's suite. Losing U-verse distribution, meanwhile, would be a modest blow only. The service, which is being phased out by AT. In other words, U-verse makes up a small percentage of the approximately 20 million subscribers to the Pac-12 networks, and we could thus resume a small percentage of the conference's total media rights revenue. In fact, one could argue that half the schools in the Pac-12 might be better off financially were the conference to end its partnership with AT. That sounds nonsensical, but consider, under the terms of the agreement reached in 2013, AT. To take that step, the athletic departments had to sever existing wireless agreements at the local level and bundle their rights into a package that the conference handed over to AT. In return, the Pac-12 received distribution on U-verse, telecom services and cash compensation from AT. The specifics have not been made public, but the AT. Were the AT. For the California schools, and perhaps for Washington and Arizona State, as well, because of market size, those wireless rights would be worth more than the $1 million to $2 million annually produced by the AT. UCLA, for example, would be better off receiving full value for wireless rights in the Southern California marketplace and no U-verse carriage than with a below-market paycheck from AT. The current deal benefits the Washington states and Oregon states, one source explained. So if DirecTV carriage is removed from the calculation, if the current state of affairs were to continue, then half the athletic departments likely would benefit financially from the end of the AT. And it could be more than half, if we consider Utah and Oregon. Of course, it's difficult to price out the psychological hit to the conference that would accompany its DirecTV hopes fading to black. Like we said at the top, the situation is complicated. Get Pac-12 conference news in your inbox with the Pac-12 Hotline newsletter. Sign up.